Okay, so let's jump in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kabbalah Cafe, our special Sukkot edition in the Sukkah. I cannot tell you how happy I am for Sukkot, just in general. I love this day. It's the perfect time of year in Atlanta. I know first few days got a little cold at night, but that's all part of the charm. I always love how, like, after Yom Kippur, it feels like to me the weather changed a little bit. It gets a little bit of a bite, and you're like, oh, fall festival, Festivus. I'm kidding, that's something else, but like fall festival. We're gonna go in, we're gonna lean in on the sukkah out in the hut. In fact, it says in the Talmud that God specifically lines this holiday as it starts to get a little cooler, so that no one should say the reason why we're doing this is just because we like the outdoor weather. So it's got a little bit of a bite to it. Explain California or Florida, perhaps, but well, maybe hurricane season, but nonetheless, that is the idea, that we're doing this not because it's, although it is, but mainly because it is a mitzvah, but it also is lovely this time of year here in Atlanta, and it's really wonderful to enjoy the time here as well as wherever you are. I hope you have a sukkah nearby. By the way, if you're not sure if there's a sukkah nearby and you want to eat something in a sukkah, which is a mitzvah, any day, any time of day, it's just Google your local Chabad, and there's always bound to be sukkah, including in middle of Manhattan. That's the way it is. That's the way Chabad rules. Okay, so jumping into our topic is critical care. And the focus today is on the sefirah, is on the attribute of gevurah. Now, what I'm going to do is pass around the sefirot chart, the one that we always, oh, did these go? Oh, you got one? Okay, so here, please take, and take and pass. Thank you. And take and pass. Thank you very much. So we have here, and show you guys what we're looking at. This one right here. I'll pull it up on the screen. So we have here our sefirot chart. The way we're going to do this is quickly go through the energies, as we always do when we talk about these topics, and then hone in on our sefirah du jour, which is going to be gevurah. Not that we do this every week, but sometimes we do this, and this is one of those occasions where we're focusing on one of the energies. So just starting from the top, just to go through this very, very briefly, chachma, dat, we have the three intellectual capacities, breaking something down, understanding it, framing on a certain element of it. That is where you put yourself and the concept and the idea in proximity to each other. Chachma is creativity. Chachma is, if you are and it's not only art, you can also be a chef. Yeah, chef, right? You can be creativity on any level. That is a chachma driven element. Chachma is creativity. Bina is not the creative mind, it is the analytical mind. It's the mind that breaks things down, to understand them, to figure them out, to apply them, to find lateral or parallel concepts that also relate to the concept that you're talking about, etc. Bina is breaking it down. It's not coming up with the new information or the new intelligence. It's understanding it. So it's imagine like this. Imagine Chachma as the artist and Bina as the analyst. Now, so which one is your mind? They're both. It's different parts of the brain. You might call it right brain, left brain. In Kabbalah, it's one's on the right side, one's on the left side. It lines up cool. But that's the idea. And Bina is analytical. One thing you must know about Bina, and this is going to come up today, very stark, very strong. That is that Bina, as opposed to Chachma, is subjective as opposed to objective. Chachma means that you're getting a glimpse of a new idea. You're getting a creative spark that almost comes from outside of you. It almost feels like you're channeling some sort of higher inspiration or outside influence. It's like the light bulb that goes off, and suddenly you get an idea, or suddenly a creative wave comes over you. And where does it come from? Well, Kabbalah breaks it down. It comes from higher realms of creative intelligence, etc., i.e., divine intelligence. But the point is that you are almost experiencing something beyond yourself. Whereas Bina, as you understand something, as you analyze it, as you break it down, as you figure, as you apply it, that all of that is you, which means like this: Chachma is objective, Bina is subjective. Chachma is one, Bina is many. What I mean by that is If chachma is the art in the gallery hanging on the wall, an example that I've used in previous classes, bina is how every person that walks into the gallery and looks at the painting, how everyone interprets it for themselves. Bina is interpretive. Bina is how you analyze it, how you understand it, how you process it. Every you is different because everyone processes a little bit different. So bina is where bias, not in a bad way, but bias. Well, these all have a negative connotation. Prejudice, that's negative. Any shading. Oh, look at that. Shading, any sort of like slant, angle, framing happens in bina. Chachma is objective. Bina is how I understand it, how I parse it, how I contextualize it. Bina is very much attributed to how we go about our day, which is why we say Aim Habanim Semecha that we recite today on Sukkot and every day of the holiday. Aim Habanim Semecha, Hallelujah. Aim Habanim Semecha means the mother of the children is happy, which means that Simcha, joy, comes from Aima, from Aim, from mother. Bina is considered the mother. Chachma is in Kabbalah, Chachma is father, Bina is mother, and Bina is the source of Simcha, of joy. The source of joy is how you understand something. In other words, you could wake up in the morning and be breathing air, oxygen, have a breakfast, food in your home, have a car in your driveway, right? You can have all of these things, right? Heat or AC on demand, clothes to choose from, and wake up and think, my life is terrible. Now, again, this is not a judgment of life being good, of the negative stuff, but this is just pointing out that so often we overlook the positive stuff and we only notice, I think, what's called the missing tile, right? Like missing tile syndrome, like the one tile that's missing. It's terrible. Who's in charge of this place? The tile is missing. Meanwhile, how much good is there? But this is a bina issue. This is not an objective, is life good or bad? This is how am I framing my life? How do I see it? It's the bina bias that determines whether I'm happy today or in this moment or I'm unhappy. What am I looking at? My toddler wakes me up at 3 a.m. because for the very first time, they escaped the crib. It's 2 or 3. I'm losing track here of ages. Whatever the age is, right? The toddler, the child got out of the crib, and now all bets are off. There goes sleep. I can either be upset or I can think, wow, this kid's a great climber, right? It's right. The kid who is a little bit energetic in class. Am I saying troublemaker? Am I saying leader? How am I looking at it? How do I perceive it? That's a choice. That's subjective. Cue up the pessimist, optimist story with the kids and the twins. I'm not going to say it again. Say it almost every time, but nonetheless, that is bina. That is that. That's what you focus on. That's what you are putting forefront in your given moment. So what you know is almost like in files in your mind, like you know the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You know how to determine the hypotenuse of a triangle. You know how to figure that out. But you weren't thinking about that until I mentioned it, which means that you have a lot of information stored in your mind as well as I do, right? But when it comes to the forefront, now it's in your mind and now it's activated, and that's what that is. What you're activating in the forefront of your mind. Chesed is loving kindness. Now we get to the emotional traits. Chesed below chachma. Chesed is now the emotion of love and kindness and giving, and gevurah is severity or withholding. Gevurah also is related to din, which is judgment or justice. And typically in the cage match between chesed and gevurah, you guys saw that one? It was on pay-per-view last week. I'm kidding. Right, remember cage matches back in the day? Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant. I don't know if they ever were in a cage match, but they could have. Jake the Snake Roberts. So gevurah and chesed pitted against each other. Typically, you're going to say, let's go for chesed. Right? Chesed gets a good rap. Gevurah gets a little, at least a skip. Now, I want to just focus on this for a second. I think the reason for this is because it's easy to love chesed, right? It's easy to love chesed because chesed is love. It's easy breezy. It's like, oh, do you like the I'm just going to go wine here for a second. Like, do you like the Bartanura Moscato d'Asti, that blue bottle? Yes. Why? Because it tastes like Sprite. It's easy to like it. It's not that. Now, some people are like, that's crazy. Like, oh, gross. Fine. But conceptually, right? Like, even a child, not suggesting alcohol for minors, however, right? It's not hard, right? To like that which is sweet and easy and effervescent and bubbly and whatever. Hence, Riva Bear with the barb about the joke about the seltzer and the lulav in the esrog hold pouch of the lulav case. It's not, certain things are easy. You don't have to develop a palate for it. You don't have to be sophisticated for it. Certain things are an acquired taste, right? What's an acquired taste? I don't know. Oh yeah, yeah. Gefilte fish. Gefilte fish could be one example. You give a little kid some dry, like, I thought you loved me. What is this? Right? But think about that also, right? Think about a really little kid. You give a toy or you give like a check for $100. They'll be like, I don't want this piece of paper. I want a toy. And you're like, oh, but don't you know what this represents? And they're like, no, I don't. I actually don't. And I'm not ready for that. Like, I don't know what it represents. I'd rather have the little toy. Nassim was running, my oldest son. That's fine. He was running. I actually say I like the musical, but so here's the thing. Nassim was running the kids program here over Sukkot and Shabbat the last 3 days for the 1st through 4th grade boys, and he did a raffle day one, but like he didn't have any prizes for the raffle, so there were raffle winners but no prizes. So the next day he was asked like sort of like right before the Yom Tov to do the program, but there was no time to get prizes or whatever, and I guess they're not stocked with prizes, the synagogue. So he went around our house the first day of Yom Tov after the first raffle, and they have found some like some tchotchkes and like asked the kids like, are you okay with are you okay giving this up for the raffle? Yeah, absolutely. One of these these, have you ever seen these things now, like the bubble popper things? Like those rubber, like plastic, the kids are popping things and poppets, whatever. So they were cool with that. Why am I saying this? It's like so he ran the raffle day 2 and day 3, and gave the ones for day 1. They loved it. They loved the toys. And meanwhile, these are around the house and like, no, like whatever. They're just, but when you win something, it's great. But imagine you gave like a piece of paper to a little kid, to a very little kid. Like, what are you doing? Like, where's my toy? I don't want a piece of paper. Like, no, but don't you? This paper represents. So here's what it is. If you pit chesed against gevurah any day of the week, everyone's going to choose chesed. Why? Because chesed is sweet and it's kind and it's loving and it's generous and it's immediately good. It's like sugar, sweet. Who doesn't want chesed? Who doesn't love chesed? You love chesed. It means loving kindness. How do you not love love? Everyone loves that. Gevurah, though, wow. Gevurah seems mean. Gevurah is like, no. Gevurah is strict. Gevurah is discipline. Like, that sounds like I don't know, a little uncomfortable. Like, it's a Sunday. What's with the gevurah? Like, let's just like, can't we all just get along with chesed? What's with the gevurah? And yet, throughout this text, as we've been studying it the last few weeks, throughout this text, the focus is on the power of gevurah, which explains and helps us understand why it is, according to the Midrash, when God initially created the world, he wanted to exclusively use the power of gevurah, and it's only after that he mixes in the attribute of chesed, love, into the mix, but the original temperature, the original flavor of the 11 herbs and spices of creation, kidding about that, right, was gevurah, spice with gevurah. And our question is, why doesn't God love us? Wouldn't he want to be kind to us? Isn't creation an act of kindness? Why the gevurah? Why is that the first thing off the bat? What's going on? How does it make sense? Etc., etc. And here, today, we get into the power of gevurah, as will be discussed. So one point, just to recap, one point that we've mentioned thus far in our text is that without, on a very pragmatic level, without gevurah, and I'll just give a very easy phrase for gevurah, law and order. Without law and order, anarchy. chaos, societal breakdown. If you want to know what it's like to, if you want to keep on extending credit without any need to pay back, I don't mean literal loans of money, but I mean like, you did this wrong, it's fine. That, totally fine. That, also fine. Where does it end? It ends in disaster. It ends in just falling off the rails. Hundo P, as the kids say.
I mean, you love your children, you give them chesed, certainly, you adore them, but you also have to apply the gevurah. You can't let your kids run wild and do whatever they want.
100%. A little discipline. You need a little discipline. Correct. Chesed, unmitigated chesed. Pure chesed. When I say pure, unmixed with any trace of gevurah, will always end in disaster. Now, you could ask yourself a question, but why? It's love, it's giving, it's generosity. Too much of a good thing ceases to be a good thing. It's no longer a good thing. So extending, right, somebody does something wrong. Oh, that's fine. They do more things wrong. Totally fine. More and more and more. Where does it end? It never gets better. Like the example that I used a few weeks ago and then referenced it last week as well is if you're driving on the road and you turn your steering wheel like 5 degrees to the right, you start veering out of your lane. Now, if you recognize that and recorrect, you're back in the lane. Well, if you keep on if the steering wheel remains right crooked, you're just going to end up, God forbid, off the road, not in a good place. Because that's the way it is. And so they put, and I mentioned this again a few weeks ago, last week, they put the rumble strips right along the side of the road. If you go this way, hold on, it's going to let you know you're going to get some feedback, immediate feedback. You got to recorrect. If you go a little too far this way, I mean, they have some, on many highways, they have those dividers, concrete or steel dividers. And the message is that we have these guardrails that will let us know when we've gone too far, right? And maybe not even too far, but even a little far off, you're going to know about it and you're going to have to recorrect because we cannot afford to let you go wherever you want. No, like, I'm even thinking now, just to continue this driving analogy. I mean, you have red lights. Why not let everybody just drive as they wish? Limits and red lights and stop signs. Why? Just let everyone just drive as just chesed. Do whatever you want. Autobahn. I'm kidding, right? But or not. It's. Do they?
Yes.
Do they? You've been to India.
Yes.
It's chaotic.
Beyond what you could imagine.
Really? No traffic laws?
There aren't any. They don't abide by the traffic. Nothing.
Really?
Just honk and you just pray. Yeah. You're not going to get it.
Chaos. No, I don't know why they do that, but like, so no gevurah, no laws, no rules, no regulations, no restrictions is not a good thing. It's like giving is good. More giving is better. Unlimited giving would be the best, right? Not necessarily. At some point, you hit a wall where it's not good. So gevurah is necessary. Now, gevurah means, of course, being strict. I say being disciplined, the ability to say no, putting up guardrails. Now, we said on a very pragmatic level, guardrails are important because without guardrails, we might fall completely off the edge. But today, we're going to go even a little bit further, that in personal growth, gevurah is actually a tool that you and I can use that actually elevates us, personal spiritual growth, even higher than chesed. Let's break this down for a quick second. Gevurah is, hold on one second. We got a comment here. Isn't gevurah the stuff of distinction, which is how Hashem created physical world? Yes, David is correct. The gevurah is part and parcel of the definition of the world. In other words, if God creates and just emanates light without differentiation, distinction, without division, then you have a world that doesn't have distinctness. So, and that's a little bit what we're going to get into. Imagine if the hand didn't have distinct fingers. We wouldn't have dexterity. The ability, the human ability that we have, the dexterity that we have, the fact that we can right, fine motor skills, right? It's because we have these different fingers. All of that is a product of, essentially, if you were to think about this, a hand that is then carved out and delineated. That is an act of gevurah, right? Hand. I'll give you another example along those lines. Imagine if, now this unfortunately happens and happened even recently in these parts of the country and parts close to us. Okay, if you think about how much rain falls in any given city over the course of a year, say Atlanta, I don't know the number of gallons, but imagine if all of that for the annual rainfall were to fall all at once. In 1 second, all of that rain were to fall. It would destroy houses. It would destroy farms. It would destroy things. Chesed, what rain is, right? Water is required for growth, for life. Trees, plants, everything humans require water. So is it a chesed? Yes. But imagine if it was just like that. We call that, I don't know, a hurricane. It's not good when it all falls at once. What's the key? What's real chesed? Is when you have gevurah. It's when you have one drop at a time. A drop, and then another drop, and then another drop. Don't give it to me all at once. Another example, you're at a restaurant. The waiter comes over. Can I pour you some wine? Yes. Pours. Fills up the cup. Still pouring. It's getting higher. Still pouring. It's up to the top. Still pouring. You think it's a Chabad Kiddush. What is happening here? Right? It overflows. It then goes all over the table and onto your clothing. Chesed, wine is good. More wine, better. Right? Infinite wine, great, right? No. Sometimes you need it the right amount. That's gevurah. Gevurah is limitation. Gevurah is limiting. All of this is how gevurah plays a practical role in creation, in our lives, in a healthy relationship. But on a deeper level, gevurah is the key to self-growth. In other words, as long as we tell ourselves that we are perfect, that we have no flaws, good to see you, welcome, welcome, grab some breakfast, we got some bagels, coffee, cream cheese, lox. Where is it? On the buffet, on the grand buffet. Johnny, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So as long as we tell ourselves that all is good and everything is great, it's good. It's not a bad message, but where's the growth? The growth happens so often when we take, and we have to use the words carefully, but I think everyone feels the context here. When we take a critical look at ourselves and we're able to be what we call a, think about the phrase, for lack of a better term, a self-audit. This is a very strong high holiday theme. We know that the month of Elul is a month of what's what I'm looking for? Introspection. That's it. It's a month of introspection. We look inside. We audit. We think about the past year. We think about where we want to be for this year. Right. The month of Tishrei, Yom Hadin, Day of Judgment, little gevurah. It keeps us right. Keeps the fire burning. The point is like this. The point is that so long as we tell ourselves everything's okay, nothing changes. When we are brave enough to take a look inside and say, I'm not blowing up my life. I'm not saying everything's bad. What I'm saying is, what are the areas that I need improvement? Or what are the areas in which I can be a better person? Whether it means better in my human relationships, whether it means better in my spiritual relationship or my relationship with self, because we all have three relationships: self, others, and divine. So in all of these three areas, when we have the inner audacity to look inside, to really think, and not think in the context of justification. Well, the reason why it's not working is because of this, that, other. Forget the justifications, forget the excuses. But we're able to look boldly inside and say, these are the things that I need to work on. These are the things that are not going so well in my life. These are the areas in which I would like to be better. We're able to look at that and not be afraid of challenging ourselves. That is where the growth happens. In other words, the growth happens when we're able to be critical of self and not say everything is fine, everything is amazing, everything is dandy. I'm not saying everything is not fine, but it's not about me. It's about every individual for themselves saying there are areas, gevurah, leveraging your gevurah, there are things that need improvement. What I'm suggesting is a gevurah that is introspective as opposed to extrospective, which is a word that I just created. I don't know if it exists, but introspective as opposed to looking outside, looking inside. What do I mean by that? So often we use gevurah outward, and we say, this is what's wrong. This is the missing tile. This is what's wrong with you. This is what's wrong with this. This is wrong with that, right? We use gevurah outward. What chesed and Kabbalah come along and say is, one second, gevurah is a powerful tool. Imagine if we used it against ourselves. Imagine if we used it for the purpose of self-growth. Imagine if we used it for the purpose of climbing ever higher, challenging ourselves. Imagine if you had a basketball player. Oh, no, it's baseball. Baseball season. World Series is coming up. A baseball player, football. Yeah. We have a lot of Yankees fans from New York around these here parts. People are getting excited. But imagine you had an athlete, a runner, a swimmer, it could be anybody, right? A gymnast. Imagine an athlete who was very talented, very skilled, and very happy with themselves. I'm very good. I'm very talented. Good. Do I need to wake up 6 a.m. and push myself? Why? I'm very good. Do I need to show up, and learn new things? A pitcher. Do I need to learn a new pitch? Why? I can throw already 100 miles an hour. I'm good. That talent, that athlete will never be at the top. You have to push yourself. You have to constantly push yourself to be better. And the reason why you push yourself to be better is because you feel like where I am is not good enough. That's self-critique. This is not someone else calling you out and saying, oh, he's a bum, he can't play baseball. It's not about anybody else. It's about you looking yourself in the mirror, or not even the mirror. It's about you thinking about yourself and saying, I recognize my talents. I recognize where I excel. I also recognize that there's stuff that I need to work on. And then you work on it. Michael Jordan was notorious. That sounds negative. Was famous for showing up and shooting, shooting hundreds and hundreds of free throws every day. What, he couldn't make a basket? This is when he was at the top of his game. Well, he didn't know how to shoot a basketball. He needs to go to the gym. He pushed himself. And the reason why a person pushes themselves is because of gevurah. Chesed doesn't make you push yourself. Chesed makes you say, it's good. It's great. Chesed is generosity, not only of giving, but generosity of spirit for others and for yourself. It's judging favorably. Chesed means you're great as you are. I'm great the way I am. Chesed is important. It's important to have chesed, but it's also really important to have gevurah. Without gevurah, there's no growth. Gevurah is the inner voice that says, as good is good, is better, nicht besser. If good is good, is better, not better. That's gevurah. Gevurah says, climb higher. Gevurah says, challenge yourself, push yourself. Gevurah says, like, life is great, but there's a mountain that's begging to be climbed. Where does that come from? I need to climb. I need to push myself. A new challenge, a new skill, a new talent. I'm going to start, I don't know. I'm going to start making sourdough. Where does that come from? Right. Where does it come from? Yeah. It's about recognizing, like, everything is good, but we're going to try something. We're going to push. We're going to challenge. Self-challenge. And I know a lot of people love, like, crossword puzzles and Sudoku, right? And these types of things, word challenges and Wordle and whatever it is. People love these types of things, right? Many people love. Why do we love it? We love it because it's a challenge. We want to challenge ourselves. If you wanted to have the answers, you would just read a book. It has all the words right there. It's got all the words. No challenge involved. But you look at something and you challenge yourself. Why? That's gevurah speaking. Chesed doesn't want challenges. Chesed is sweet. Gevurah is tangy. Gevurah challenges the palate. Gevurah is a little bit of pain, which is pleasure. So that's where gevurah is. I want to talk about the 3 ways of dealing with gevurah.
If you over critique yourself,
yeah,
don't you go into the negative side?
Correct.
So
Yes.
don't you have to find a level between the two?
Yes. And so that's the perfect segue to what we're going to talk about now, which is making sure that gevurah remains healthy. Perfect. Gevurah can be likened to a knife. It's very sharp. You can use a knife to score your sourdough before you bake it to make that thing, whatever that's called. You know what I'm talking about? Like the crusty thing. You can use a knife to cut a birthday cake. You can use a knife, to cut some meat. You can use a knife for violent purposes also, God forbid. A knife is a sharp tool, and as a sharp tool, it could be used in many different ways. And so when it comes to gevurah, we have the same danger. The danger is whether gevurah is pointed outward to make sure that someone doesn't fall out like we started, making sure that someone doesn't drive off the road. So we have guardrails put up. Gevurah, there's rules and discipline. I want to make sure that you, let's say they're a child, I want to make sure that you don't just whatever, like become unhealthy. So we're going to put guardrails. We're going to put, there's going to be discipline in the relationship. Okay. Or whether that's outside or whether it's internal, that I'm looking at myself and critiquing and looking at myself, which are the areas that need improvement. In both areas, there's a danger that the knife is going to be a little too sharp. I want to share with you a story, not a story, a teaching. The previous Rebbe once said that when it comes to, okay, let me take a half a step back. There's a verse that says in Torah, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, it says, Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, which means rebuke, you shall rebuke your fellow. It means, essentially, if you see something, say something. To whom? To them, right? If somebody's doing something unbecoming or untoward, you got to say something. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, right? Tochacha, what is that? Rebuke. Correct. Yeah, how would you translate it?
Pretty much what you said,
Yeah. Is that used in modern Hebrew? Not really. All right. But it means say something. But you know what the very next words are? Love your fellow as yourself. It's right there in the Torah. What does that mean? Right. But am I looking critically or am I looking with love? And it seems like it's, well, which one? Am I looking with an eye that says, I'm ready to see what's wrong and then correct it? Or am I looking with generosity, spirit, and love? And the answer is, this is the balance that we're meant to walk. And when we talk about loving your fellow as yourself, it implies two things. You have to love your fellow and you have to love yourself. It implies both. Love your fellow as yourself means you also have to love yourself, which means that even as you use gevurah for the other or for yourself, it also has to be with love. So the previous Rebbe once said that before you rebuke someone else, and rebuke means it could be anything, like don't run by the pool, right? Like anything. Just remember back in the day, maybe that you should just lean on because safety. But like he says you have to cut your fingernails, metaphorically. Cut your nails and then wash nagelwasser. After we cut our nails, we then wash our hands like we do in the morning. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Right? What does he mean? Make sure that when you rebuke, you're not scratching. Make sure you're not scratching. Don't dig in, right? Make sure. It's like, anybody have a cat or been around cats? Yeah, I grew up with a cat, right? They can scratch, right? They can scratch if they get in. In fact, you have usually cat furniture where the cats, right? Don't they they scratch that up instead of your couch, a post or whatever it is, right? So we are the cat in this analogy, and we are encouraged to not scratch. Even when we need to say something, we need to be corrective because it's important to correct not only the other, but also ourselves. When we do that, we have to make sure that our nails are trim and that we washed our hands afterwards, that it's all about the objective. Because here's how, hey Norm, because here's what it really means. Here's what's really going on. When a person hears or senses that you're coming after them, that you're scratching, no one likes that feeling. No one likes the feeling of being scratched. What people like is to know that you care about them. If they know that you care about them, they will be way more likely to listen to the advice, to what you have to share with them. If they know that it's coming from a place of love with their best interest in mind, that's one thing. If they think that it's like you're judging, then it feels uncomfortable. Then it's like no one likes to be judged, and no one likes to be told off, and no one likes to be critiqued, because ultimately no one likes to be scratched. Who wants to be scratched? To be scratched. You know what they used to say? I'll tell you, you have to listen. I hope you appreciate the context. This is Russia. This comes from Russia, straight from Russia. This is what I'm about to share with you. They used to say, if you walk the...
You're talking about which period from Russia? Early 1800s or now?
No, not now. No. This is a few hundred years ago from Russia. Correct. Yes, that is an important distinction. The Chassidim used to say, if you took branches and walked over to someone in the middle of the street, right, and hit them with it, it's assault. Who does that? But you go to the schwitzes, go to the sauna,
Hot bath.
the hot bath, right? And when everything heats up, and then you give a little clap, it's a machaya. I can't speak from personal experience, but that's what they say. That's at least back in Russia, right? It was like a thing. You get, it was a thing.
They used to go to the hot bath and then they used to go for the massage.
Right. Now, also part of it is getting a little, I'm saying all part of the, so you can't just lean in. You have to warmed up for it. You have to make sure that you sounds critical care, because really the way to critique is from a place of, it's critical care. It's criticism from a place of care, not from a place of judgment. If gevurah is pure gevurah, in other words, judgment because I'm judgmental, then the other one is going to feel a little bit turned off by that. And the truth is, if we are going at ourselves like that also, it's too harsh. Pure gevurah is pure chesed, right? It's not going to go through. Pure gevurah, too harsh. For ourselves even. Imagine if we tell ourselves, not good enough, not worthy enough, right? You make it happen. Right? It can't be, tell yourself that. Those thoughts through your mind, it's going to be tremendous. It's going to be terrible. It's not. What we're suggesting, what Kabbalah suggests with gevurah, Michael Jordan did himself better. I'm still not perfect. I want to make sure I never that shot that over better. Healthy gevurah is ultimately, sorry about that, guys, just disconnected for a second. Ultimately comes from a place of love and care and concern. Does this make sense? Yes. Now, what do we do? How do we deal with when gevurah gets too harsh? I want to share with you. I don't think we've done this before. We might have at some point. If we did it recently, let me know. But there's 3 ways to neutralize gevurah's harshness. One way is by using the energy above it, which is bina. One way is by using it against itself, gevurah on gevurah. And one way is by using the next energy, which is tiferet, the next one down in the middle. You with me on this? Yeah. 3 ways that Kabbalah teaches to deal with gevurah. Sorry, let me explain. To deal with an overactive, unhealthy, biting, scratching gevurah. So number 1 is bina. Bina is, as I said before, and I made sure to drop some what are the breadcrumbs or whatever, or Easter eggs, as one does. Sorry, right, to mix metaphors, but to drop some when we talked about bina, to make sure to go in on bina a little bit. Bina is how we frame things. So it's important when we look at gevurah, and we look at when we look at someone else through the lens of gevurah, and we're noticing their faults, it's important to apply a little bit of bina so that we neutralize that, soften it a drop. It's almost like if you're a photographer, you can put on that filter that makes things a little bit more soft and less harsh, right? It covers up the flaws a little bit. That's sometimes important. What do I mean by that? I gave 2 examples before, but I want to go back to one of them. The kid gets out of bed, middle of the night, they climbed out of the crib, and now you're upset because you lost sleep. You're having a harsh reaction, right? You're having almost like you're getting upset about something. Whenever we get upset, sometimes we think that when we're upset, it's a natural consequence of whatever happened. But Kabbalah tells us that any emotion, and the emotions begin chesed and gevurah from there down, any emotion is born of a thought process. It's not like emotions are born by themselves. So if we're getting upset about something, it's always because we've processed some sort of information in a specific way that's making us upset. So if we're upset, it's because of a narrative that we're telling ourselves. We could easily, I'm not saying we should always do this. I think there are certain things we should be upset about and use that as a catalyst to create change. I think we all know of examples about that. But the key here is that sometimes being upset is not the ideal place to be in, and we can recognize that for ourselves. One way to neutralize that is by shifting our bina, by shifting the way we're seeing things. As I said before, instead of getting upset that your kid woke you up in the middle of the night because they climbed out of the crib, think about how it means that they're up to the next stage of their development. They are progressing, a healthy child, Baruch Hashem, they're climbing, they're getting out of the bed. Great. So I need to tweak some things in the setup, but this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is part of their growth. The child that is, acting out in class, okay, I could either be upset about that if I'm the teacher, or I can say, oh, here's a child that has a lot of energy. Oh, and imagine if not only they're acting out, but they're getting all of the other kids to not pay attention. Great. This kid is a leader in the class. How can I leverage the leadership of this child in a positive way? This is how I can frame it. This is how my bina can work to help ameliorate, to help neutralize, to help soften or mitigate the harshness of gevurah. Now, it doesn't mean in all situations that this is good. Sometimes it's good to feel a little bit of a zetz to make a change, to make a difference. It's like, no, this is not good. This needs to change. That is fine. But sometimes being upset about something doesn't do anyone any favors, doesn't do them any favors, doesn't do ourselves any favors. If and when we sense within ourselves that being upset, we're too gevurah, we're too stuck in a gevurah in the moment, and we're getting upset and we're getting angry and we're judging, and it's like I can't handle it. So sometimes bina helps in reframing. Bina is reframing. 1 second. Is this really so terrible? Can I not think of this in a different way? How can I flip this for the positive? How can I see this perhaps as an opportunity, or even as far as saying as maybe it's a teaching moment or a learning moment for them or for me, but at least we get the upset, the anger out of the way, and we can deal with it. So that's how Bina can help with gevurah. So again, Bina is up here, and gevurah is right below it. So we can use Bina to help reframe gevurah. Does that make sense? Yeah. We can use gevurah against itself also. How do we use gevurah against itself? Gevurah is always about judging someone. It's about being judgy. It's like, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, or you did this, you didn't. Gevurah against itself is, instead of looking at the other person, I look at myself. How could I have been different? How could I have acted different or showed up differently in this interaction? In other words, recognizing that I play a role. If I'm in a conversation and it goes sideways, what is my role in that? Or if I gave instructions and the person didn't execute, I could be upset at them, and it's not either or I can look at myself and say, okay, where was I not clear? In other words, what part of this do I own? Look, my wife is a principal of Bad elementary school. Huh? No, but she's always like learning and reading and like thinking about these things and then discussing them. I'm very fortunate that she brings me in on these conversations, and she tells me it's always like that. If you have an adult and a child, right, you can blame the child. Always the adult. It's not that you cannot blame the child. Easy to the child, right? But it's like, what? Maybe invent isn't that up. Maybe you didn't think about how the kids would react after sitting for that. You can say it's their fault, and that's fine because you're angry. But if you really want to think about it and really want to change something, it's what do the adults need to change in the environment or with themselves or with the communication to create a better outcome. It's always about taking the leadership and taking ownership over the miscommunication or whatever, as opposed to saying it's your fault, it's this fault, it's their fault, they dropped the ball, etc. It's easy to point fingers, but really the growth happens when we look inside. So in this context, what I'm saying is we can use gevurah to neutralize gevurah, which means that the moment I find myself being angry and judging and being upset about someone or something else, I say, 1 second, it's easy to point fingers, but you know the joke, that saying, when I point one finger at you, I'm pointing 3 fingers at myself, right? So when we point, we're really pointing at self, and it's about looking inward and saying, what's my role in this? And how can I show up better and be better so as to avoid this situation in the future? That's the second modality, or the second way to neutralize gevurah, using gevurah against itself, fighting fire, as it were, with fire instead of outward, but inward. The final path is, and all of these, what I love about this chart is that it has all the lines kind of interconnected, because you can, it's no one sefirah energy is an island, and no one energy is only connected with one other energy. No, it's multiple energies. Again, if you look at gevurah, there's a line above, a line below, 2 diagonal lines. So again, we're dealing with 3 elements, but these are powerful. All of this is brought, by the way, in Kabbalah. So Bina can neutralize gevurah. Gevurah can self-neutralize by turning inward instead of outward. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to mention something that I think was mentioned in a High Holiday sermon. And one of the recaps I heard, I think it was mentioned maybe by Rabbi Nu in the main sanctuary, the story of Noah after the flood. Remember, he got inebriated and he was unclothed. This one does. And Rabbi Nu spoke about this, right? I heard in the recap by Neela. And he and his son Cham sees, and he says to his brothers, "Dad's drunk and naked again." That's what he says. Ask a simple question. Would it have killed Cham to just go and help? Why is he broadcasting? He's saying, "Look at Dad. Can you believe it? Where does that come from? Why not just address the situation? And if our first instinct is to post about it on social media and say, look at this guy, then the question becomes, what does that mean? What does that say about me that I'm not trying to help? I'm just trying to broadcast the problem. That's gevurah. That's being self-introspective when we're looking to point fingers and saying, whoa, 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 why am I pointing? Why am I calling out that guy? Why am I turning against my father if I could just help him in a vulnerable situation? Can you imagine a guy who God entrusts to save humanity and the animals, who builds an ark pretty much single-handedly for 120 years, who has to deal with all this leading up this project, sees the entire world be destroyed before his eyes, and now is tasked to rebuild it? Can you imagine that? Just on a straight up level, can you imagine the trauma? Yeah, maybe he needed to drink a little. I'm not, right? This is just, it's a reality. Like, this is where he was at. He was severely traumatized. But the child to say, to laugh and to mock and to call his brothers, look what dad's doing. That's not about Noach anymore. That's about Chum. It's like, bro, it's not about dad being naked. What's with you that's your reaction? That's the question. The question is not like, is this good or not good? The question is, why are you looking at it this way? This is what I mean by, and this is so difficult, because anyone who's ever been in that moment of judging or being upset about something and focusing it outward, to then be so self-aware to flip it inward is almost impossible in the moment. But I think in retrospect and even anticipating these types of moments, if we train ourselves to always think about, and again, this is what Leah tells me all the time, like in any interaction between parent and child, teacher and student, think about the adult. Take responsibility. Like, what is your role in this? Don't blame the child. How did the environment need to be different? Did the instructions need to be different? Does the schedule need to be different? What needs to be different in order to optimize the possibility and the chances for success? That's what it means to, and a healthy level. I'm not beating myself up either, but I'm not beating them up either. I'm not beating them up. I'm not beating myself up. I'm reflecting, self-reflecting, and asking myself, how can I be better? So I had a plan and it blew up, and now it's this guy's fault because it blew up. Or I can say, how can I be better? What do I need to do to make sure that it's successful? Hey, Natan, good to see you. Welcome to the hut. Finally, this is the last point, and then we're going to close it out and then do a mitzvah. The last way to neutralize gevurah is through the attribute of tiferet. Tiferet is compassion. Tiferet is not love, it's compassion. Compassion means, the Hebrew for it would be Rahmanis. Rahmanis. How do you translate Rahmanis? It's not compassion. It's deeper than compassion. No, Rahmanis. Empathy, sympathy, somewhere it's deep. It's Rahmanis. It's like you care, you feel, your heart aches. It's different than love. It's Rahmanis, and love is not the same. It's like, oh, I saw her for the first time. We went on a date. I had such Rahmanis, I married her. No.
Not a good idea.
No, you never want to say that either. Somebody would say, I fell in love, we got married. I had such Rahmanis, I married her. No. Wow. Huge no-go. That's not a thing we say. Rahmanis, love. The reason I'm saying this is because sometimes love and compassion, isn't it the same thing? It's not the same thing at all. It's not the same thing, right? We fell in compassion, we fell in Rahmanis, so we got married. We fell in Rahmanis, what does that even mean? Fell in love, makes sense. Rahmanis is a different emotion. Rahmanis is compassion. So you feel bad, right? Your heart aches because they're in a difficult spot. Something is not great. You feel bad. Empathy, sympathy, whatever it is, it's like, that's Rahmanis. Somebody says something, does something, is a certain way, and you're getting upset. Like, you're getting upset. if you can evoke Rachmanis, then you won't be upset anymore. Imagine somebody who just can't. I don't have any specific examples in mind, but they do something, they say something that gets you upset, but then you realize, like, almost like they can't help themselves, or they don't want to do that, but they're kind of stuck in this pattern themselves. Yosef Mazel Tov had a baby boy on Friday.
Mazel tov.
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov.
Mazel tov, yeah.
Bring it in for a hug. Torah, a couple of Meister Tovim.
Amen, amen.
Lots of nachas. How's everybody doing? Baruch Hashem. Just so you know, in this community, there was a baby born. So the Romanos had a baby on Friday. No, I'm sorry, they had on Shabbat. Oh, I was wrong.
And didn't Urban say, one of his grandson have, son-in-law and them have it?
Oh, did he? Oh, I don't know. I know there were 3 boys born over the weekend. Romano had one of them. Shauli Penajel had another. And Raskin had one. Rabbi Lou's son-in-law. Rabbi Lou's son-in-law had a baby last night. Next week there's a bris Friday, assuming everyone's healthy. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Can you do a bris on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. It's a very special thing to do a bris on Shabbat. So Simchat Torah, Shabbat Bereshit, and then Sunday of Parashat Noach.
Well, on simple story, drink a lot to be happy.
Yeah. So here's the point. Imagine someone does something and they frustrate you and they do it again and again. And it's like you're being driven bananas. Imagine if you told yourself, I feel bad. This person, I know inside there's a pure soul. I know they feel stuck. I can tell that they're stuck. They can't get out of it. Instead of being upset about that, I can feel compassion toward them. Compassion that they're a human being like myself also, who has frailties and limitations, and who sometimes behaves not consistent with how they want to behave, and sometimes is trapped by that because that's how it is. And so this is how Tiferet, compassion, can neutralize gevurah. Am I upset, or I feel compassion? I feel compassion for a soul that's trapped in a body that can't be pure and beautiful always, that's stuck. And this granting of compassion, of not just sympathy, but really empathy, can move me from being upset to a place of understanding. And in truth, we can also have compassion for ourselves. When we are frustrated with ourselves for not being the person that we want to be, or for saying the thing that we regret saying, or doing the thing that we regret doing, or regretting the fact that we didn't do the thing that we should have done, we didn't take the step we should have taken, and we beat ourselves up. Sometimes, if the gevurah is getting too sharp within, bust out the tiferet, bust out the compassion for self. Recognize that you have a chelek elokami mal mamish. You have a literal piece of God inside of you, and imagine how difficult the journey has been for your soul in your body, and with all those limitations, and recognize that Hashem gave you a body and gave you challenges, and both internal and external, and has put you in a difficult position, put you in positions of difficulty and challenge, and that you're not perfect. And then feel empathy for your soul, compassion for your soul, your neshama. And that can be a catalyst to healthy growth. In other words, release, give your soul a better shot, give your soul a better chance. And so with this, we can highlight the advantages of gevurah and minimize the liabilities of gevurah. One of the objectives of today's session is to explain not only how gevurah can be helpful for our growth, but also how we can avoid the pitfalls of gevurah. So getting back to our cage match, if you had to choose between door 1 and door 2, and door 1 was pure chesed, and door 2 was gevurah, I think all of us would choose chesed. Who wouldn't choose love? Choose severity, strictness, judgment. That doesn't sound nice. You choose chesed. But when God was creating the world, the Midrash says, God chose first gevurah. Because gevurah, number 1, keeps us on the road, keeps us from veering too far off the track. And gevurah also, the attribute of gevurah that we have within our souls, gevurah, which is that self-judgment, can motivate ourselves to be better and to grow and to climb higher.
Thank you.
Pleasure. One thing we know, just to conclude, one thing we know is that complacency, that doesn't get us anywhere. Gevurah is the fire, right? Chesed is not a fire. Gevurah is a fire, the pilot light that's lit internally that propels us to growth. So as we celebrate Sukkot, as we celebrate this beautiful holiday, and it's so beautiful, it's getting warmer as we speak, as we're out here. And it may be the sun, or maybe the Kabbalah, or maybe a combination of the two, maybe the camaraderie that we have. But as we celebrate Sukkot, let us remember to always keep that fire burning. And the altar and the temple of old, the Torah says, keep the fire always burning constantly, 24/7. They fed the fire on the altar with wood to keep the fire burning. Likewise in our hearts, in our souls, we have to keep the fire burning, to always challenge ourselves, to never become complacent. Imagine, I've arrived, I do this, I do that, I do good things. All of that is great, but let's push ourselves to do more. Let's strive to climb higher. And with that, we will indeed climb higher and get ever closer to our potential. And let us say, Amen. Thank you for joining.
Amen.
You have not had a chance yet to do the lulav shake or the lulav lemon shake. Lululemon. See what I did there? Right. So you can join me in the hut, and we are in the hut. Sorry, you can join me for the shake.
Hood.
And yes, the hut in the hood. And we'll do that. Great to see everybody. Zoom. Great to see you, David. Great to see you, Shashi. Great to see you, Frank. Renata. Great to see you live from Jersey. Amazing. Larry, Marianne, Jacqueline, Maritza. Good to see you guys. Sending lots of love to everybody. Chag Sameach, Moed Tov, and only blessings. All right. We'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.